News when you want it. With Bloomberg News Now, I'm Amy Morris. The price of oil sunk on hopes that the U.S. and Iran are nearing a deal to end a war that has jolted markets and clouded the economic outlook. Sources tell Bloomberg that Iran is evaluating a new proposal from the U.S. to end the nearly 10-week-long war. Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall.
Our reporting indicates that right now the two sides are discussing a one-page memorandum of understanding that would first seek to have a gradual reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, with the U.S. lifting its naval blockade. Under this plan, how it stands, it would appear that that would then kick off another round of more detailed negotiations surrounding curbs to Iran's nuclear program.
Bloomberg's Tyler Kendall. Iran is expected to send a response via mediator Pakistan in the next 2 days. Although the semi-official Iranian Students News Agency reports the plan contains, quote, excessive and unrealistic proposals that have been strongly rejected by Iran's authorities. WTI now near $95 a barrel, and Brent crude now topping $102 a barrel. U.S. exports of oil products rose to a record high last week at 8.2 million barrels a day. The U.S. has become a key supplier of fuels like diesel, jet, and gasoline to the world. The U.S. Energy Information Administration data shows shipments were driven by robust demand for U.S. diesel, with cargoes reaching an all-time high. Carlyle's senior advisor Jeff Curry discussing the ongoing disruption in oil markets, saying storage tanks will run empty in Europe and then later in the U.S. in the coming weeks.
The question is when and where. I still say the review, it's going to be, sometime in the month of May that you're going to end up with Europe hitting tank bottoms, and in the U.S. it's somewhere in that July 4th time period, if not sooner.
Curry also tells Bloomberg's Francine Lacroix that even if the Strait of Hormuz standoff were to be resolved now, it will still take months to resume a regular flow of oil. CNN founder Ted Turner has died. Turner founded the cable news network, the first 24-hour all-news TV network. He was an outspoken media mogul who owned sports teams, was a champion yacht racer, and was married to actress Jane Fonda for 10 years. He became a prolific philanthropist, donating $1 billion to the UN. He was diagnosed with Lewy body dementia in 2018. Ted Turner was 87 years old. A maritime coalition led by France and the UK says it's ready to escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz if Iran agrees to a U.S. proposal to end the war. France has moved its Charles de Gaulle aircraft carrier to the Red Sea, where it will be met by vessels from other partner countries to signal the coalition's readiness to secure the strait. China's foreign minister Wang Yi is calling for the swift reopening of the strait in a meeting with his Iranian counterpart, saying that the international community shares a common concern for the return of safe passage through the strait. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer says President Trump is expected to bring up China's continued energy purchases from Iran when he meets with China's President Xi Jinping next week. Greer also says changes that the European Union is considering to a transatlantic trade deal could limit American exports to the bloc. He says the EU is still not in compliance with the U.S. trade agreement.
The EU has had a lot of time, many months, to comply with their tariff commitments and their commitments on non-tariff barriers, and that hasn't materialized yet. I think that the minds are focused in the EU and in Europe, I think is probably the best way to describe it right now. They're focused on what next steps are and how they might come into compliance.
Hear more of our interview with Trade Representative Jamieson Greer on the Bloomberg Talks podcast. St. Louis Fed President Alberto Musalem says there is much uncertainty over the future path for the economy and monetary policy. He sees risks rising more for inflation than for employment.
We have risks both on the employment side and on the inflation side. In my understanding, that risks have been shifting towards more risk on the inflation side than the employment side.
Musalem told the Mississippi Bankers Association there are scenarios under which officials may need to lower rates further or raise rates, saying that there's a lot of uncertainty and it's important to see how things settle. We do check markets for you all day long here at Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 1.1%, NASDAQ up 1.5%, the Dow up about 1%, the 10-year Treasury yield at 4.35%, and the 2-year yield at 3.86%. Sony Music is finalizing a deal to acquire a music catalog from Blackstone that includes works of Justin Bieber and Neil Young. Sources tell Bloomberg this is one of the largest such deals in music history. This deal is to acquire Recognition Music Group, which either owns or manages the rights to more than 45,000 songs, through a joint venture with the Singaporean sovereign wealth fund GIC. Sony and Blackstone are trying to close this deal within the next week. GIC to pay between $3.5 and $4 billion for Recognition. That's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Amy Morris. This is Bloomberg.